Iowa, the Hawkeye State, or as some know it, the place where the tall corn grows. But there is another side of Iowa, a part often not seen and only heard about in bits and pieces, woven together through campfire stories, passed down through generations, and adding to the mystery and lore of what some would call paranormal, the supernatural, disrupted spirits, stories of ghosts and hauntings, cryptids, UFO sightings, and alien encounters. Stories of the unexplained and unimaginable, but stories that nonetheless simply exist and lurk in the shadows of the 29th state. This is Iowa Shadow Files.
Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to Iowa Shadow Files. I'm Dan, your host and Iowa paranormal storyteller. Today we dive into the story of the Bank Demon of Mason City. This one hits a little closer to home for me as the backdrop to the story takes place in Mason City, Iowa, and an area I know a little something about. Not only did I go to college there, that's right, North Iowa Area Community College, or as the locals know it, NIAC. But after moving away to attend the University of Northern Iowa, I came back and lived in Mason City for at least a dozen or so more years. So this story today hits closer to home for me. A story of a bigger town in North Iowa with the nickname of River City, and a darker story of a bank in the downtown area, almost kitty corner to where the Frank Lloyd Wright Hotel is located, the former location of Norwest Bank. You see, I say former bank because Norwest Bank, at least in that location, is no longer standing, and it's that bank in that location which grabs the centerpiece story for this episode. Because along one of the bank telling lanes, within the marble slab walls that outlined the lanes, was a dark and evil image, expressing itself towards bank customers. Car after car would drive up through the lanes, turn towards the wall to do their business at the bank, and come face to face with an image of a demon. That's right, an image of a giant demon-like figure. Some said it was Satan himself, maybe a demon, but definitely something dark, sinister, and evil. And it wasn't just the fact that the demon image showed itself through the marble. It's the fact that after several complaints from customers and people refusing to go through the lane because they were scared of what might happen to them, maybe they would be cursed, or the demon would hop in the car, follow them home, harm them, whatever the reasoning, it caused enough concern for the bank to have the marble replaced. And this is the weird part. After they replaced the marble, the demon reappeared. Maybe it was a little different in appearance, but the story goes that after they replaced the marble, the image reappeared, and it was almost exactly, if not exactly, the same image of the demon before. It was back. More on the bank demon right after this. Dan here, just wanted to give a quick shout out to one of my recent followers. I had this message left for me last week, and his message went like this. Oh, hey, I'm looking for the host of the Iowa Shadow Files. It's like one of my favorite podcasts. I have an idea for a burn episode. You can name it Pick Her Up at Pocahontas, Iowa. So let's pause there for a second because I thought that was pretty interesting. The title that they want for our podcast is Pick Her Up at Pocahontas, Iowa. Okay, so yeah, he goes on to say, I believe there was this guy. He got into a lot of trouble. He was showing some signs of being a troubled person even back in his Iowa days. If you could go find it, maybe tell the story. Okay, first off, thank you for following along. It always means a lot to have followers, but also hear back from some of my listeners. And I believe the story that you are referring to is the one about the famous serial killer, Robert Hansen, or better known as the Butcher Baker. So you hit the nail on the head when you said he showed signs of being troubled. I mean, he was convicted of at least charged with murdering at least 17 women, at least. And the keyword that runs shivers up and down your spine. He would reportedly fly his victims out into the Alaskan wilderness, release them into the wild, and proceed to hunt them with rifles and knives. So, yes, indeed, troubled. His connection, of course, to Iowa, as you know a little bit about the story, I could tell, to know that he was from the area originally before moving to Alaska. He was born in Estherville, Iowa, and a little later in his youth, moving a couple times, ended up in Pocahontas, Iowa, where his father was a baker. And that's really where things started to really escalate into a life of crime for Hansen. He started his whole crime spree by burning down the school bus barn in Pocahontas as revenge for his mistreatment and being bullied in high school. So there is so much to unpack on this one, and normally we would stay within the boundaries of paranormal stories. But there are enough true crime stories to be told within the realm of a shadow file, definitely a dark overtone with covering true crime stories. But even though we are not necessarily a true crime podcast, because we're not, we can certainly share a few of those stories here from time to time, especially if a podcast subscriber reaches out and asks about it. So, with that being said, we're going into a true crime episode next week, telling the story of the Butcher Baker of Pocahontas. So, just again to recap, the majority, maybe 99.9% of the time, we are focusing on our paranormal stories here in Iowa, and going to touch on just once in a while, especially when someone reaches out like this, on a true crime podcast. It sometimes mixes together and sometimes not. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and do that. And next week, touch on the story again of the Butcher Baker of Pocahontas. But for now, as we focus in on the paranormal, let's get back to the story. Mason City is an interesting town. If you've never been, you need to put it down on your bucket list to visit. It has this 1930s vibe to it, especially if you wander around downtown. The history is oozing from several of the buildings downtown. Not far from the downtown area sits the boyhood home of Meredith Willson, the famous writer and composer of the musical The Music Man. And sitting right next to his boyhood home sits Music Man Square. To celebrate this fact and giving the nickname to Mason City as the backdrop town of River City from The Music Man. Second, you have the Frank Wright Hotel, known as the Park Inn Hotel, and this is the last remaining Frank Lloyd Wright designed hotel in the world. Yes, that's right, in the world. There were originally 6 of those, and now the last one stands in Mason City, Iowa. Kitty Corner from the Park Inn Hotel is the old building that once used to house First National Bank of Mason City. Now, from the outside, it doesn't look like much, but the history around it and Mason City is astounding. You see, this is where the infamous Dillinger Gang robbed First National Bank as they went on a huge bank robbing crime spree, adding to numerous reasons why J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI listed John Dillinger as public enemy number 1. Yes, right downtown, a huge shootout scene and bank robbery took place. Do that again. Yes, right downtown, a huge shootout scene and bank robbery took place, with the gang making away with about $52,000, which is about $1 million in today's money. The gang being made up of Babyface Nelson, Eddie Green, Homer Van Meter, John Hamilton, and Tommy Carroll, all armed with the famous Thompson submachine guns, shot their way in and out of Mason City, with hostages lining the outside of the Buick running boards to prevent taking any gunfire. True story. Another wild history story of the downtown Mason City area. And right on the same street as the bank, which sits on the corner, if you go a few buildings to the north, you run into this brewery called Fat Hill Brewery, and this is where the memory of the bank demon came back to life for me. I joined my friend to try out the brewery. I didn't have a chance yet to to go there, and I heard great things. And the night I visited, I was in the mood for a decent stout, which guess what they had? And the stout I selected was called Bank Demon. Curious on the title of the beer, the memories flooded back as I figured out they had named it after the Bank Demon incident over at the old Norwest Bank building. Now, the old story of the Bank Demon was kind of 90-ish, right? So in the 90s. And now here we are, many years later, and looking at this stout named Bank Demon. And this one, where I personally experienced it myself. See, the Teller Lane marble was showing a vision of a demon creature in the marble, and I will post a picture of it on the YouTube channel, and it was definitely creepy. If you look at the picture, you almost have two separate demon creatures staring at you. The first is the standing demon with goat horns coming from up top. It seems to have a skull face and wearing some kind of cloak with its arms outstretched, reaching for the onlooker. The second one seems to be in the chest of the bigger demon, where another demon face is looking right at you. It was a creepy experience, and many people, I'm sure, were starting to drive through the lane at night and even during the day to just catch a glimpse. For some, it might have been a dare, or even a chance to look at it and see for themselves, hey, is it real? What is all this fuss about anyways? But the bank began to catch wind of the image in their marble, and it didn't settle well. Negative press and stories like this, whether true or fiction, is simply bad for business. So they had the marble replaced. And this is where things got really freaky. The image returned. Maybe it was just some design within the marble, and it played tricks with people's mind. Maybe it was a demon. Maybe there was something more sinister going on in and around the bank. Eventually, they closed the lane completely and filled in the drive with gravel. People still persisted on seeing the image, and now the bank was gaining the story of it being haunted. I'm going to stop here for a minute and talk about the picture in question. First, there are two boys that are in the picture. Only I cropped them out to prevent having pictures of minors presented on this show. And it begs the question, why on earth? If you were a caring adult or parent, would you ever have your two kids stand beneath a demon picture? Was it wrong? Probably not. Odd? Definitely. I mean, it's not like you are taking a picture with the family with Mickey and Minnie Mouse at Disney World. So this was a little twisted in my book, but needless to say, the image is out there, and we are left with all these questions. Was it really a demon? Was it Satan? I think of the church-laid skit from Saturday Night Live in this one. Could it be Satan? Or was it just a marble with its original design? And the human mind sees what it wants to see, and so we're seeing things. We're seeing images, kind of like looking up at the clouds. And as they shape and make forms, our eyes start seeing images. We start seeing clouds form into shapes and different objects and things. And our minds make up the image. Or it's like looking into a campfire for a long time, and eventually as you stare, the fire begins to take shape within the flame. Could it be this? What are the chances of the exact image reappearing after being taken down? Needless to say, the bank has since been torn down, and the bank lane is no longer there, and the building is no longer there. And sitting nearby is a totally different bank, Wells Fargo Bank. Not the same building where the bank demon appeared, but sitting next to where the bank and the bank teller lane stood. It's interesting that nearly 30 plus years later, stories of the bank demon still persist in the folklore and mysteries deep within the shadows of Mason City's past. But they're still there. Simply doing a Google search, you can catch some conversations going on about the bank demon. People remembering, people being freaked out, some people calling it bogus. And you get a completely different bag of individuals surrounding what they remembered and what they think it was. Of course, I have Fat Hill Brewery downtown Mason City to thank for the completely jogging my memory on this one. So what about you? Have you experienced the bank demon? Maybe you have a different story about another bank demon, or another weird or strange image that appeared on a wall or a building. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at iowashadowfiles@gmail.com, iowashadowfiles@gmail.com. Whatever your story is, you can share it in complete confidentiality, because if you are like the rest of us, walking around, pondering mysteries, exploring legends and folklore, searching for any ounce of truth that might present itself, we know this. We know there are more places, more stories, more questions, but we also know the truth is still out there. This is Iowa Shadow Files.